Welcome back. I'm so excited that you joined us today because today we are beginning our first part of the training seminar. This is a 10-part series all about training. In the past we've covered things on why goals fail and also onto nutrition, and today we're going to cover training, and today is just the intro video. There is a 10-part series on training. I'm just looking at some of my notes. Today we're just going to cover the basics about training, calling it Optimum Performance Training. Then we get into phases of training, flexibility training, balance and stabilization training, true core training, reactive and speed, agility, and quickness training, cardiovascular training, resistance training, how to put it all together, and finally, kind of our own plug, having a coach. So let's talk a little bit about what our tagline is today, and it's to be systematic with your training, the Optimum Performance Training. And so what does that mean exactly? Well, what it means is that most times when you go into a gym, I think if you were to walk up and poll people and just, the guy in the street who polls people, if you were to go into the gym and start polling people, start taking surveys and say, what is your plan? What is your plan for your workout? Tell me a little bit about how you work out and the system that you follow as far as working out, and how talk to me about being systematic with your training. Tell me about the plan that you have for your training, and they're going to kind of look at you like, huh? Or ask them this question: what's your blueprint for training? And see what your response is. Now, I guess using other questions or using other examples, if you, let's say, build a house. If you built a house, for example, you would have to have a blueprint in order to build a house. You can't, you just can't go in and start, digging a hole and try to lay out a foundation and start putting up walls. There has to be a blueprint. There has to be a plan in place for, how you're systematically going to build the house. Well, why isn't that the case for fitness? It happens. There are people who are extremely systematic with their training. And I think it goes to show that most people who are, unless you're a genetic freak who just responds great to exercise, most people that have a plan in place and are systematic with their training are going to have much better results, because there's going to be things in there. There's going to be a plan in place, not only for how to progress through certain things, but also if you hit a plateau, that plan is also going to have in buffers to how you should get through a plateau, how you should progress through things. And I think that's really the most problem. I think most of you can agree with me. When you go into the gym, it's like most people don't have a plan. They just go in to work out, do some circuits, do whatever, and not be necessarily systematic about what they're doing. To have a plan in place, to have a strategy. And as we've talked before, what we're talking about as being systematic is step 2. Step 1 is spending adequate time having a vision, being very clear about what you want to do. And I'm going to talk about that for a second, because if you're systematic with your training and you put this wonderful system together, let's say for building muscle, but you find out really that, well, building a lot of external skeletal muscle is not necessarily what you want. You want to focus more on stabilization and endurance, and let's say you're an athlete and you think, well, I need to build muscle, but then you start thinking about it and you're like, well, I need better balance. When I go to my left, I need to be able to have better stabilization in my ankles. I need to have better internal core strength. I need my back to have better support. Well, that then has shifted the focus then from strength or bodybuilding training over to pure athletic, foundational, and fundamental training. And there's a gigantic shift in the system that is put into place. So the first step is always be clear about the vision. Be very clear about what you are trying to accomplish. And if the system is put together and the vision changes, don't be afraid to change the system. Okay, so vision first, system second. System and strategy are the same. So now that we have our system and strategy in place, now that we have our vision in place, now we want to focus on the system and the strategy. Because if you just mindlessly go in and get your workouts in without really putting a plan in place, I think it's easy to know what you're going to get back. So it's like, okay, how do we become systematic? Well, the term that we've used during this first introduction is Optimum Performance Training. And it's the model that all of my certifications are through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I've chosen them because I believe that the National Academy of Sports Medicine, I really believe in what they do, because their plan makes sense, their plan works, and it's very good for most people because it's so functional, it's so foundational, and it's very clear how to move people in different ways. You can, based on the system, you can take an individual and in the system you can very easily plug them into this place or this place or this place, and so much of it goes into human movement, biomechanics, all these things that most traditional certifying bodies don't do. So that is one of the reasons why I am such a believer in the National Academy of Sports Medicine, because the results are good. Foundationally and functionally it makes sense, and people overall tend to be healthier, they tend to be stronger, and they tend to perform better, and which is going to improve the quality of life. So Optimum Performance Training, that in itself talks about what it is. It is, just that. No matter what the degree is, whether it's bodybuilding, regular life, athletic performance, losing weight, you're trying to perform better. So no matter what the goal is, we have to identify what the vision is and then match the strategy to meet the goal, so we're optimally performing appropriately. Optimum Performance Training. And so it's like, what does it mean to be systematic in your training? And one of the things that I heard in a training show years ago by Thomas Plummer, which I agree with, is that Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the worst things ever to happen to fitness. And I'm sure I'll get backlash on this, but follow me here for a second. And I'm not saying he's the only innovator here. I'm just saying he's one of the responsible parties. And it's getting better and better and better with the with all these functional studios that are popping up, with CrossFit and other things. But most gyms that you walk into, what do you see? You see nothing but equipment. Now think about that for a second. Now, here's another thing that I've said countless times. When you have equipment, the machines that you see takes up the majority of space in a gym, is really designed for the most in-shape people who are trying to be or look like bodybuilders. The reason being is machines are there to stabilize the weight for you. There's not a whole lot that you have to do to stabilize anything when working with machines. And that's why they're easier to do. That's why people gravitate to the machines, because they're easier. And and also it's being easier, there's less fear that goes into knowing what weights to pick up and so forth. But if you have an experienced coach or a good plan that you know how to follow, such as getting it online, I've often told people that people who are beginners or people who are athletes, so we have two spectrums. Put my hand so we can see here. Beginners, athletes, both spectrums, they should be using free weights and body weight oriented things, and bodybuilders in the middle looking to do hypertrophy-oriented training should be engaged in more machines, because the need for stability isn't as much. Where if you're the more functional you're trying to be out here, the more of a reliance you have on being more functional. So therefore, when you start doing things, whether it's single leg movement, standing on a Bosu ball, standing on a unbalanced piece of equipment, it's going to require things such as utilizing, your internal core structure. It's going to cause you to start using, internal back muscles, hip muscles. It's going to force you, especially if you're aligned with the right fitness professional, to reduce muscular imbalances, to improve function, to improve balance, to improve stabilization, to increase your core strength. And what that's going to make you is to perform better. Because the other thing too is that all machines, if you think about it, move in this motion. They just move in one motion. They don't move laterally. They don't move transversely, twisting, turning. There's a few exceptions. There's a few machines that do, but most just move in one motion. So whether it's you following a good plan that you're comfortable, or whether it's you working with a fitness professional and they're doing things that are improving core, balance, stabilization, function, all of that, which is improving overall optimum performance, when that is happening and you're also then putting in lateral movements, twisting motions, you have now become more functional, more healthy and fit overall, and then you're more prepared to get into regular normal activity or exercise that most people go into the gym and do. Same thing with athletes. Athletes don't just move ahead. They move side to side, they twist, they turn, they do all this stuff, so they need to be trained that way. So optimum performance training, it's not about just going into the gym and working out. It's about different levels of training that are built in to hit all of those areas. So you're getting, in the beginning, the bottom level is doing stabilization-oriented training. And then you move into more strength training, and then at the top there's power-oriented training that is designed more for athletic-oriented training. It's like, okay, at the base level, we're trying to stabilize your body. We're trying to incorporate different movements, side to side, twisting, but we're doing it in a slow motion so we get all of those core stabilizing muscles, balance stabilization muscles to strengthen. And then once those are strengthened and then you have the overall body strength, then what you can do is you can go into athletic movements where you're moving quickly. It's like stabilization but fast, and your body's able to handle those changes of motion with weight. And that's how we can take somebody and move them up that ladder into be the most functionally performing person that they possibly can be. And before you think for a second, like bodybuilders, for instance, well, I don't need that stabilization training. I don't need that power training. Oh, really? Really? I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit later when we get into flexibility training. But I've seen more bodybuilders with muscular imbalances, problems with their feet, not being able to perform their activities right, muscular imbalances coming from lack of flexibility in certain areas. Everyone can benefit from stabilization and flexibility training. Anything that's stabilization-oriented training has its time and its place for people in their training. Strength has a time and a place with people in their training, and so does power-oriented training. I just wanted to give you this overview today to tell you that this is the type of training that we want to be involved with. You have to have a system in place for your training, and you just can't guess. The vision has to come first, and then we want to evaluate where you are and move you through periodic steps so all foundations of training are covered, and that we can match the training to meet your goals so you are stable, that you're strong, and you can perform functionally at the highest performance possible for you. And I hope that kind of gives you a nice introduction to our training, and I'll look forward to talking to you tomorrow when we talk about the actual phases of training and what each of the phases are. So I appreciate you joining us today.
When you feel that something's wrong, I'll shelter you and keep you warm. I'll never let you walk alone.